Giving honor to God, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, the God who woke me up this morning and gave me another opportunity at life, another opportunity to bring forth the good news of his son, Jesus Christ, bring forth his word. Last time, I went through the story of Moses in a Mother's Day story about his deliverance into the house of Pharaoh to be raised as a prince of Egypt, his killing a Egyptian, fleeing into the wilderness to escape the wrath of Pharaoh, and after being humbled in the wilderness 40 years, I told about his encounter with the God of the bush, the God that told him that he would, through signs and wonders, deliver his children out of the bondage of Egypt. I went through the doubts of Moses, where God gave him Aaron because of his doubts that God would pick him to be the deliverer of his people. And in Moses' complaining that he couldn't speak well, God sent him Aaron. I even told a little side note about a argument that Moses and his wife had at the way at the end when it came to the circumcision, because God sought to kill him for going out to carry out his word and to show the people his miraculous power as God without being circumcised, without having that covenant sign of circumcision. I continued on with the various plagues and signs that God worked through Moses, who worked through Aaron, to convince the king of Egypt to let the people go. God had already told Moses that he was going to harden Pharaoh's heart, and Pharaoh would not listen to him. But God didn't tell him that he would punish the people, that he would have Pharaoh punish the people for having even asked him. I went through all of the different plagues, turning the water of the river Nile to blood, and the frogs he brought up upon the land, the lice, the hail, the locusts. And I ended last time with Pharaoh making a proclamation to Moses that, okay, don't come before me no more. The next time I see you, you will surely die. Moses told him he spoke well. Later on, he talked with God, and God told him that he was going to bring a final plague onto Egypt. The death of all of the firstborn of Egypt, from the house of Pharaoh to the house of his slave, all of his animals, everything firstborn in Egypt was to soon die. Exodus 12. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. So God is declaring that this is going to be a beginning point for the children of Israel. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls, every man according to his eating, shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Ye shall take it out of the sheep or from the goats. And ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month. And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. Now that's a peculiar little additive to add, that they would keep it up, that they would take it from among the flocks of goats and sheep, and they were to bring it up into the house, take it up for 14 days. And you got to kind of picture that in your mind. That would be like, if you had a pet, and you bring your pet into your house and you have it for 14 days and you build this attachment to this lamb. And then you have to take it out and kill it in the evening, to slay it. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper door posts of the houses wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden or boiled at all with water, but roast it with fire, his head with his legs, and with the purtenance thereof. And ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning. And that which remaineth of it until the morning ye shall burn with fire. And thus ye shall eat of it, with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in hand, and ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. So they're to take this lamb and take it up in the house as a pet for like 2 weeks. Then they're supposed to kill a lamb and take the lamb, the blood of the lamb, put it on the two side posts and the upper post, the door jambs of the house. And then they're supposed to eat the lamb, but they're to prepare it and eat it in a certain way. They are to roast it with fire. Don't boil it. Don't eat it raw. Roast it with fire. And they're to roast the whole thing with fire. The entire lamb. And they're to eat the roasted lamb, unleavened bread, bitter herbs. But they're not to leave any of the lamb for later. They're to eat what they can eat and then burn the rest. And they're to eat it in a particular fashion. They're to eat it with their shoes on their feet, their staff in hand, eat it in haste, eating to prepare for a trip. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. Now, one of the interesting things that I get from this far is there was no condition on the people about how to act. It didn't declare whether, a saintly person or the worst person in Goshen could partake of this Passover meal. It was a simple, trusting faith act that they were to take this lamb and they were to slay it, and they were to put the blood on the door jambs of the house and go into the house and eat the lamb roasted with fire, the unleavened bread, the bitter herbs, eat it in haste with your shoes on your feet and your staff in hand, ready to go. I make that little point because I believe that one of the problems of Christianity today is the over analyzation of oneself when it comes to God. Faith versus works. Do I believe that works get you to heaven? Yeah. But I don't believe that it's the defining issue of my ticket to heaven. It's a simple faith act. God always deals with his people with acts of faith. And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. Ye shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. And the children of Israel went away and did as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all of the firstborn of cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants, and all the Egyptians. And there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. And he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, Rise up and get you forth from among my people, both ye and the children of Israel, and go, serve the Lord as ye have said. Also take your flocks and your herds, as ye have said, and be gone. Remember, at this point, Pharaoh is telling them to take everything, because remember, throughout the plagues, he would agree to let the people go worship, but don't go far. Or he would agree to let the men go worship, but don't take any of your herds as sacrifice. He even agreed to let the men go and worship in the wilderness, but leave your children. Don't take your young ones with you. So at this point, right at the point of God exacting his judgment on Egypt, Pharaoh calls for Moses and Aaron by night. Say, Rise up and get you forth from among my people, both ye and the children of Israel, and go and serve the Lord as ye have said, as they have said. Take your flocks and your herds, as ye have said, and be gone. Bless me also. Recognition on Pharaoh's part to ask from Moses a blessing from his God for releasing the people finally. And the Egyptians were urging upon the people that they might send them out of the land in haste. For they said, we be all dead men. And the people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading troughs being bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses, and they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent unto them such things as they were required, and they spoiled the Egyptians. In other words, the Egyptians are paying them to go. All of this is going on here. Take what you want here. You want money here. You want clothes here. Take what you need. Just go. And they were the people. The Egyptians were urging upon the people. They hurry up here. Take what you need. Telling them to leave. Hurry up. Go. And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot, that were men besides children. So at this moment of deliverance, when they're leaving Egypt, it was 600,000 men. We're not even talking about women, children, men. So you're looking at maybe 1,000,000 plus people that just walked out of the gates of Egypt to freedom. And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot, that were men besides children. And a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, even very much cattle. And they baked unleavened cakes in the dough which they brought forth out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, because they were thrust out of Egypt, and could not tarry, neither had they prepared for themselves any victuals, no food. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the selfsame day, it came to pass that all of the hosts of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. It is a night to be much observed unto the Lord for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. This is that night of the Lord to be observed for all the children of Israel and their generations. And the Lord said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof. And he goes into the rules for the designation of this Passover feast, this forever Passover feast. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, sanctify unto me all of the firstborn, whatsoever openeth the womb among the children of Israel, both of man and of beast, it is mine. And Moses said unto the people, remember this day in which ye came out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, for by strength of hand the Lord brought you out of this place. There shall be no leavened bread be eaten. This day ye come out in the month of Abib. And it shall be when the Lord shall bring thee into the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which he sware unto thy fathers to give thee, a land flowing with milk and honey, that thou shalt keep this service in this month. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, that they turn and encamp before Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, over against Baal-zephon, before shall ye encamp by the sea. For Pharaoh will say will say of the children of Israel, they are entangled in the land. The wilderness has shut them in. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, that he shall follow after them. And I will be honored upon Pharaoh and upon all his hosts, that the Egyptians may know that I am the Lord. And they did so. And it was told the king of Egypt that the people fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and that of his servants was turned against the people, and they said, why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us? And he made ready his chariot and took his people with him. And he took 600 chosen chariots and all the chariots of Egypt and captains over every one of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued after the children of Israel. And the children of Israel went out with an high hand. But the Egyptians pursued after them, all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh, and his horsemen, and his army, and overtook them encamping by the sea besides Pi-hahiroth before Baal-zephon. And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them, and they were sore afraid. Now, the people just witnessed the death of all the firstborn. They witnessed all of the plagues. They witnessed God's hand go throughout Egypt, kill all of the firstborn. And yet, when they saw Pharaoh coming to them, they were sore afraid. And the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord. And they said unto Moses, because there were no graves in Egypt, hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness? Wherefore hast thou dealt thus with us, to carry us forth out of Egypt? So they're not even out of Egypt all of the way. They barely out of the front gates. And cried out to Moses, how can you do this to us? Wasn't there enough graves in Egypt? Why you got to bring us out here to die? Is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than we should die in the wilderness. And Moses said unto the people, fear not, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show you today. For the Egyptians whom ye have seen today, ye shall see them again no more forever. So here's Moses even having to convince the people, even after freedom. Even after freedom. That the people, aren't there enough graves in Egypt that you got to bring us out here to die in the wilderness? Didn't we tell you to leave us alone and let us serve the Egyptians? And God didn't strike. This is another one of those little interesting times to me, because God didn't, you don't hear that God's anger waxed hot. Moses just says, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. It's all faith right now, baby steps. The Lord shall fight for ye, and ye shall hold your peace. And the Lord said unto Moses, wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel that they go forward. But lift up thy rod and stretch out thine hand over the sea and divide it. And the children of Israel shall go on dry land through the midst of the sea. What God does for this undeserving, rebellious, whining, complaining group of people because of his word to Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob. And I, behold, I will harden the heart of the Egyptians, and they shall follow them, and I will get me honor upon Pharaoh and upon all his hosts, upon his chariots and upon his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gotten me honor upon Pharaoh, upon his chariots and upon his horsemen. And the angel of the Lord, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them, and the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel, and it was a cloud and a darkness to them, but it gave light by night to thee, so that the one came not near the other all night. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. And the Egyptians pursued, and went in after them to the midst of the sea, even all of Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And it came to pass that in the morning, watch, the Lord looked upon the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and of the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians. And took off their chariot wheels, so that they drave them heavily, so that the Egyptians said, let us flee from the face of Israel. And the Lord fighteth for them against the Egyptians. And the Lord said unto Moses, stretch out thine hand over the sea, that the water may come upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to his strength, and when the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it, and the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the host of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. And there remained not so much as one of them. God keeping his word to a bunch of whining, complaining, doubting people, that after that day, the Egyptians that pursued after them, they would see no more forever. The people cry unto Moses, why do you bring us out here in the desert to die in the wilderness? Weren't there enough graves in Egypt? Didn't we tell you to leave us alone anyway? Let us serve the Egyptians. And Moses told the people to stand still, see the salvation of the Lord, and shut up, hold your peace. God told Moses to march the people toward the Red Sea, and for Moses to stretch out his hand and part the sea. And all night the people traveled on dry ground through the Red Sea. And in the morning, when they came to the other side, and then Pharaoh pursued after them, God knocked off their chariot wheels and troubled the Egyptians, more like jinxed them. They went through the Red Sea after the Israelites, after God hardened their heart, and then their wheels popped off their chariots. God just starts to jinx them, and that's when the armies was like, nah, let's leave this place. We have nothing against, we can't fight this God. And God then tells Moses to stretch out his hand, and the sea returned and drowned all of the chariots and horsemen of Pharaoh, to that there was not one left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. And Israel saw that great work which the Lord did upon the Egyptians. And the people feared the Lord and believed the Lord and his servant Moses. So, God proving his power to the people, and the people feared God and believed in God and his servant Moses. Then sang Moses and the children of Israel, chapter 15. Then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song unto the Lord, and spake, saying, I will sing unto the Lord, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and their rider hath he thrown into the sea. The Lord is my strength and song, and he is become my salvation. He is my God, and I will prepare him a habitation. My father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name. All of those people that tell you war is wrong, God is never for war. Exodus 15:3. The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his hosts had he cast into the sea. His chosen captains are also drowned in the Red Sea. The depths have covered them. They sank into the bottom like a stone. Thy right hand, O Lord, is become glorious in power. Thy right hand, O Lord, has dashed thy enemies in pieces. And the greatness of thine excellency, thou hast overthrown them that rose up against thee. Thou sentst forth thy wrath, which consumed them as stubble. And with a blast of thy nostrils, the waters were gathered together, and the flood stood upright as a heap, and the depths were congealed in the heart of the sea. I like that little verse because it kind of puts this little human appearance to God, that with a blast of his nostrils, he blew his nose and parted the Red Sea. Lord, I thank you. I thank you because I can relate to the doubts. I can relate to the fear of following God. The cruelty and the criticism of the world for believing in you, believing in your power and your majesty and your might. I thank you for bringing in your word this very powerful example of your salvation to a people that didn't deserve it, to a people from the time that they were in Egypt to later on in the wilderness murmured against you and doubted your power. They only believed when they saw, but never demonstrated faith. Their belief in God was a reaction to something that God did instead of just based on faith that God said and he will. God, I thank you because through this story I get to see that sometimes my miserable protesting self can have grace, deliverance, salvation in your sight from you. Lord, I thank you for the reading of your word. I thank you for the good news of salvation through your Son, Jesus Christ. I pray that God keep you and guide you and protect, deliver, fight for you. Good night. God bless.
Can't go